Constitutional Convention took place from May 14th to September 17th from 1787 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The point of the event was to decide how America was going to be governed. Although the convention had been officially called to revise the existing Articles of Confederation, many delegates had much bigger plans. Benjamin Franklin, James Madison, George Washington, and William Patterson were one of the most important people involved in the Constitutional Convention. Today we will be interviewing William Patterson and James Madison.
I'm here with William Patterson and James Madison to talk about the Articles of Confederation. Why do you think the Articles of Confederation failed? Why do we need to get rid of it?
The Articles failed because there was too much power in the hands of the people, and Congress and the national government didn't have enough power, resulting in the inability to control the citizens effectively.
I disagree. I believe the Articles of Confederation was helpful to people and didn't have as much of a voice.
Why do you think the Constitutional Convention took place?
The Constitutional Convention took place to resolve the difficulties that the government created.
What did you guys agree on during the convention, and what was your contribution to it?
I represented Virginia at the Constitutional Convention. My duty was the chief recorder. My notes created a model for the Constitution. I came up with a Virginia plan.
I represented New Jersey, and I composed a New Jersey plan, which was in favor of the smaller states by making sure all states had equal representation.
We decided that in order to form a strong nation, we also needed a strong central government. I wrote the Constitution over many weeks, for there was much discussion over the rules and regulations and rights we were to put into it. We had to have everyone agree on everything, so there was much debate on slavery, representation in Congress, and the new executive branch. The problem had to do with southern states feeling like they needed them to maintain and work on the plantations. The northern states felt as though slavery should be abolished.
There were many problems on representation in Congress. Small states felt as though they should have the same amount of influence as the bigger states, but the bigger states felt as though it wasn't fair. Many states feared a strong central government because they had just escaped from one, and the problem with the executive branch were that it would become too powerful, so a series of checks and balances were created.
Do you think the reaffirmation of the Constitution will benefit our nation?
I believe the reformation of the Constitution will be beneficial for this nation and can be used as a basis for government for years to come.
Yes, but I believe there might be some issues with slavery in the future.
Would you like to tell us about the Virginia plan?
I created the Virginia plan with Edmund Randolph, and in it we proposed a strong central government with 3 branches, including the executive, legislative, and judicial. Each of these branches have checks over the others, so none become too powerful and take away from each other or the people.
What about the New Jersey plan, Patterson?
The large states wanted representation based on population, but the small states believed they would lose power to the large states. They wanted representation to be the same for all states, no matter what the size was.
And what do you think about the final result of combining the 2 plans to form the Great Compromise?
I would rather have stuck with my plan, but the Great Compromise is something I can understand and agree with. I called for representatives in the House to be based off states' population, and then 2 representatives per state in the Senate.
The Great Compromise was when they combined the New Jersey and the Virginia plan. They took the representation of the population of the state size from the New Jersey plan and applied it and made a House of Representatives. So there are certain numbers of houses for each state based off the population, and the minimum is 1 per state. But you can have more if your population is larger. And from the Virginia plan, they took the 1 vote per state, like equal representation, and applied it to the Senate. So the Senate is the higher power, and they vote off of what the House says. I believe the Great Compromise will be beneficial for everyone. A bicameral legislature is a good idea.
How long did it take to ratify the Constitution?
It took 10 months to get 9 states to sign the Constitution, but there was a lot of arguing between the Federalists, who were in support of the ratification of the Constitution, and the Anti-Federalists, who weren't. The Anti-Federalists wanted a Bill of Rights so that the government could not take too much from them. Through much negotiation, the Bill of Rights was added to the Constitution in 1791. It was consisted of 10 rights that the government could not break or interfere with no matter what.
Created by Benjamin Franklin, bifocals are a pair of advanced eyeglasses that have 2 separate focal lengths. This device will help you see both near and far away.
These ocular devices are especially helpful for reading books and especially helpful for seeing things far away. Buy yours now from your local doctor for only 15 Continentals.
Hey, those are some cool bifocals.
Thanks. We are hearing a lot of the 3/5 compromise. What is that exactly?
The 3/5 Compromise outlined the process for states to count slaves as part of the population in order to determine representation and taxation for the federal government. The compromise reached among the states' delegates during the 1787 United States Constitutional Convention.
What issue was the 3/5 compromise made to resolve?
People wanted to know if slaves should be considered part of the population or not when deciding votes for like elections, stuff like that. They decided that slaves could count 3/5 in total of a state. Like they would take all the slaves, count population, and they take 3/5 of that number, and that would be the slave representation. Okay. The 3/5 rule was used when apportioning representatives, presidential electors, and taxes.
Well, that's it. Thank you guys for coming to this interview.
In recent news, Oliver Evans has invented a grain machine apparatus. It is an automatic 3-part mill containing card teeth which cards the wool. This device will be helpful to many.